Thanks, and can you hear me? Yes. Hi, everyone. So it's really a pleasure, pretty humble being here. I think this is a key event for, Agile said, automation and AI. And so we thought, what a best, there's not a best way to do this, to share some thoughts around, very relevant topic of what was just discussed, right? How can we move into a new era, right? Post-ticket, AI-enabled era. Many of these topics have been discussed in the previous panel. Just a couple of thoughts here. This is my fourth FutureNet, and we went through different waves of discussing transition OSS, advancement OSS, next-gen OSS. Remember, 2 years ago, we started the discussion around cloud-native evolution of OSS. A lot of discussion around autonomous networks, right? So I think what we want to do today is to look a little bit in the future, to give you some ideas or some principles of what are we looking at. And again, at Blue Planet, we had the pleasure of working with Orange Business, with Mohammed. You do a quick introduction. Because we had the opportunity to reinvent some of the business. But this reinvention did not happen in a vacuum. It basically happened as part of a process inside an operator, international operator, which actually forced us to think of how do we evolve the supporting platform, including some of the topics around AI that's being discussed, right? So, Mohammed, maybe why don't you introduce yourself, and you can start maybe, describing what you're going through, and we'll have a conversation on stage with you.
Thank you, Gabriela, for having me. I'm Mohammed Talaya, Orange Business CTO. So we are in Orange Business, we are dealing every day with customers, which is actually going through a massive transformation. They are either transforming cloud, they are transforming their connectivity, their infrastructure. So our customers are going through transformation, but also we in Orange Business, we are going through a major shift, right? So we are actually building a different expectation from what we are expecting from the understream operating system or operation systems.
Yeah.
So we are in Orange Business doing what we call it the platform-first strategy. So we are transforming end-to-end from the whole kind of front-facing layer or front door. We are building a platform-like experience or hyperscaler-like experience, if we say it like this, where each customer will have his own tenant to be able to operate whatever they are buying from us or consuming from us, but also we are transforming our underlying infrastructure. So we are actually moving more towards VNFs and CNFs. We are changing our point of presence and technologies there. And in order to be able to connect both together, we have to transform the middle layer. And yes, we are doing a lot of things on the BSS, but the OSS itself, we are transforming it. So to try to make it simple, or as simple as it can be, today our customers have this physical world. It's full of sites, traditional data centers, remote sites, and the private cloud. That's where we as telecos comfortably operate it, right? So we need to connect sites together. We need to connect the whole ecosystem together, and that's where our role comes.
And by the way, you do this not just on a single country. You do this across multiple continents.
Yes, we do it internationally. We have customers spread all over the world, and we need to connect their main sites at their headquarters with factories. It could be in India or in China, and headquarters in US or in Europe. And even we are doing it in a sovereign way, as just talking about sovereignty. So, for example, we are serving some of the sovereign customers in Europe, and we have to do it really. I can say we need to push it down to a sovereign slice for the network, sovereign data center, to be able to handle their sovereign workload.
Yeah.
And as you can see tomorrow, or actually it's really today, the customers introduced the digital world. And that's where hyperscaler happened, cloud arrived, the hyperscaler arrived, and suddenly customer have two worlds they need to operate. They have a digital world full of all the hyperscalers, they have a physical world, and that's we, as teleco operators, that's our strategic role comes here, because we can really offer the customers this end-to-end experience. We can actually, customer expect the same experience in the physical and digital today. Customer expect one operating model, resilience, security between physical and digital world, and that's where we can offer them as a teleco operators, right? And that's where actually what we are doing with this platformization. And that's where we started to reimagine the future a little bit about the OSS. So we thought that OSS need to be invisible. And invisible here doesn't mean that it will disappear. It actually means that it needs to be more automated, more real-time. It needs to bring a different values, right? It need to actually, we need to move out of this ticket-based OSS to more automated OSS to be able to act on behalf, or actually to deliver a faster and better values for our customers. And doing that, we have to start to think a little bit out of the typical OSS functionality. So it's not about observability, it's not about assurance, it's not about orchestration. We need to start to think about capabilities. And Gabriela, what are you doing with capabilities?
Yeah, and this forced us, I mean, we started this journey with you since the beginning, right? And this actually forced us to rethink a little bit. Obviously, and Joe made it clear before, right? Data is the foundation. Clean data and autonomous networks require consumer or enterprise services. It really requires many of the different OSS functions. But what we started to see is that I think we can start thinking a little bit ahead of what would you need in a future evolution or something that maybe I would call like an automated intelligence systems. So obviously those functions don't go away. As a matter of fact, those functions are actually blending into each other these days. But if you start to see it on the left side here, how can you start not anymore just looking at your planning network aspects, or how do you start blending service intent, business intent, and customer experience? This is something that has been talked about, but it's been somehow disconnected from the cohesive thinking, how to build a system. And then more on the technical side, and we'll talk a little bit more later about it, is, yeah, everybody's talking about agents. I like to think about the concept of reasoning, right? How do you actually make reasoning? And it was discussed before, it's all about data, clean data, and so forth. I think this is necessary, but not sufficient. Because we start to see that the concept of ontology, the way I describe it is, you have knowledge coming from your network. Knowledge, you build a graph, you have entity, relationships, topology, information about services association. But then you also have the context that brings together. Context about why certain decision has been made. And how do I do not lose that context in the future? And also thinking about how governance becomes way more important than in the past. Just the discussion that happened now, security is one aspect. Guardrails, fine-tuning, sovereignty. So again, all of these aspects here, they don't replace what OSS is. But I think it's something that we will start to see an evolution from an operational support environment in something that goes much more towards an intelligent and atomic reasoning. And I think this is very important because this is not just about internal operations, but how does this impact, your customer, right? That's what you asked us. Help me improve the experience to my customer side, right?
At the end of the day, everything we do to add a value to the customer, and we believe it's like, I'm here trying to cover 4 main areas, but there is much bigger impact. But if we think about faster time to market, if we automate the OSS, if it start to provide real time, so the customer actually want to be able to order to order something, consume it, and scale it in real time, and that's not new to the customer anymore. That's exactly what the customer do when they order an EC2 from AWS or an Azure service. That's literally, they order it, they have it in less than a couple of minutes. And that's faster time to market. That's what our customers are expecting from us. Also, an end-to-end platform experience. The customer want to have a platform, a tenant, a place where they are able to order the services, to be able to operate it in a self-service mode. They can connect to it through APIs, but also they should be able to connect to it through an AI experience. We need also to be able to do better observability, and we need to be able to predict what will happen in the network or in the infrastructure upfront and try to fix it even before it's visible to the customer. And that's where we need an OSS to help us. And what the customer expects above all is simplicity. So you want a simple operating system to deal with without any complexity. And we all know that simplicity on the front brings a lot of complexity on the downstream systems. And I believe what we are doing here, we want to simplify towards the customer, but I believe that might be different when it comes to the OSS, right?
Yeah, so I have bad news. The world is not becoming simpler. I was just working through some project and just the last couple of weeks, and we just look at a very, very simple process here that goes from designing all the way to optimization across different things. And again, if you see how the world is evolving, this is becoming even more complex. Now we are talking about GPUs, we've been talking about inferencing, we've been talking about the traffic pattern change. We haven't scratched the surface of what's to come on the consumer world as well, with satellite and 6Gs and eSIMs and so forth. So we don't think that the improvement or simplicity will be solved by fine-tuning and having some marginal optimization of just some better toolings. But I think the world is really evolving towards a reasoning across the environment. And everybody's talking about this. First of all, I don't think this is about just, building or adding some agents on top of existing system, but this needs to be built in the fabric. Interesting, we are here today, I think the impact of what's happening here has an accelerated pace in the industry. Just think back, the A2A protocol, agent-to-agent protocol, was launched 12 months ago today. And the whole industry is already adopting this as a communication protocol, or MCP as a matter of fact, in terms of redescribing. Joe discussed before the fact that you cannot be the one trying to close again and be the one trying to rebuild. As a matter of fact, we see the need of opening up and exposing much more these additional services, and this will be survival for OSS vendors. And the reality is that I'm also saying this because if you really think back, 12 months is a very short time in this industry, and the adoption is moving very fast. In fact, there are known unknowns or unknown unknowns. This is moving so fast that we still are getting surprised every week by advancements, by the performance of the core models out there, and tools that, to be honest with you, I think our application will look much more different in the future. There's already discussion about headless application. So interaction completely changing, not anymore through user interfaces, but through agents, or a mix of it that we see right now. But what's interesting is that as we study this journey, right, we start to see this in the project that we're building together. And again, this goes across many of these functions, right? From interpreting intent to modeling network to reconfigure networks. And this is interesting because you start to build this knowledge base. In fact, I say that it's a curse, this complexity, but it's also a blessing because it gives us way more data, right, to act on and create a knowledge base. So how is this impacting you? Because I guess you have an impact both on the traffic, Laurent talked about it, and also in your customer experience, right?
Yes, and in operation, right? We telecom operators, or we don't do a transformation every 6 months or every year, and we don't want to do another transformation to transform the OSS again after some years. So I'm happy to hear you're talking about the unknown unknowns. So if we have an OSS which is a little bit more future-looking and kind of dynamic, that might help us with the unknown unknowns. But talking about AI, so yes, AI will be very important for operation, but also we start to see a different traffic pattern. So the traditional traffic today is north-south. So it's starting from a customer with a browser. They do an action, and the action ends somewhere in a data center and somewhere down in the network. But what we started to see, actually, for example, that 30% year-on-year increase for data center to data center traffic. We think that, or we predict that 2/3 of the traffic will be AI to AI generated. And this type of traffic is unpredictable. It became really how to call it, it became coming fast. It required different changes from the network. And OSS to understand data is not enough. OSS need to start to understand the state, the signals, the outcomes, need to understand the intent of what's happening and start to act on it. So how you are answering to this?
And we use this chart here, like a DNA chart, because the reality is that we believe this sits at the core of a process here, right? You start from an intent, you go through a set of steps in terms of reasoning, observability, decisions, reinforcing, and then, of course, closing the loop, right? If you go through all the different steps here, we think this cannot be a marginal aspect, but it needs to be part of the system that drives your environment there, right? And in fact, that's, if you see of the richness of this data and more data coming in, and I think it was hinted even before, I think you can think of how do you look ahead, right? Because even the operating model can even be built in a digital world and bridging this digital with physical world, right? So you're looking at potentially the topic of a digital twin becoming the next example of how you want to manage.
And I think that's where actually the vision come to reality, right? So we need to start to think about an end-to-end platformization. So what we really need to offer in our platform is this type of experience where our customer can truly simulate and test the whole network, right? So Laurent was talking about being able to plan, but if we manage to offer a digital twin, and here I really believe that digital twin will be the core of this type of experience. If we offer a digital twin, we'll be able to offer a better experience to the customer, we'll be able to offer simplicity, because the customer will be able to merge both the physical and the digital world together and see it not only just as a topology, but actually test things on it, change on it, and test the changes in a simple sandboxes, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting that we started to make this design decision since the beginning, right? So thinking of how we evolve in our OSS. Yeah, of course, all the components are there. There's an aspect of real-time interaction, path-aware capabilities, graph technologies that basically brings in reasoning across the board. But it's really starting from the business intent, marrying the business intent with the actual operational brain. And as I mentioned before, there's never been a time where governance is more central to the conversation right now, right? For all the different reasons that you described before.
I think this slide is a good example of AI for network and network for AI at the same time, right? Because we are building an OSS where it actually can manage the AI workload, but also it have a intelligent brain, or as you call it, automated intelligent brain, AI based in the center of it to be able also to deliver or to support this AI workload. So I really believe this is a kind of a good architecture to cover both at the same time.
And it's a holistic view. I also think that everybody is looking at the ROI model. But the ROI, I don't think it comes or can be justified just by a simple individual use case, but there's a wave where it's basically, as you mentioned, platforming. I like that word because you're thinking holistically about a system. Obviously, OSS, and there's been a lot of discussion about autonomous networks, but we see this wave coming where reasoning and the different decision is actually a dynamic aspect, and this cannot be important just from a technology perspective, but we need to think about it both on the operational perspective because it's unprecedented. We've been in a cost pressure environment for a long time in the telco industry, but we very rarely we've seen sometimes the desire to, on one side, reduce costs by 30, 40, 50%. Now I'm exaggerating now, or operational improvements over time, but we're talking about dramatic changes. And this dramatic shift cannot be enabled without what we discussed. At the same time, provisioning time, speed of automation is coming down to seconds, not anymore to days, right? So maybe some few thoughts on your side.
I think you are correct, but in my mind, it's a little bit beyond the typical business case or a typical operation. Yes, speed is important, simplification is important, efficiency. I actually believe by doing that and going, for example, provisioning time to seconds instead of hours or days, I think I can say we in Orange Business managed to achieve 4 hours to provision an SD-WAN for some customers, and that's not enough. And even what I really believe is that by going down to seconds, it will open a totally different opportunities for us. It can actually help us achieving, for example, imagine in the future we can build an AI agent. We deploy it maybe inside the customer infrastructure or as near as possible to the customer to simply understand the customer intent, to understand the contractual obligation, to understand the regulation, to understand what exactly the customer wants to do, and act on behalf of the customer and on behalf of us for the best interest of both of us. Imagine if we manage to reach this. We are actually able to create a customer twin, not a digital twin anymore. So I can actually create an agent to act truly on behalf of the customer for the best interest of the customer and train this agent to be a customer twin. It might come down the line that the agent will automatically act, but at the beginning, it can give to our sales team, for example, a kind of an opportunity, or it can suggest something to the customer that it might be better if you upscale or downscale or something.
And I don't think there's something more invisible or transparent than this. By the way, many this type of operating model has been already adopted in many other industries, from digital industry to entertainment industry and consumer goods and so forth. So understanding preference and so forth. So are we close as a telco industry to this? But I think that we are driving there, but it requires a systemic change.
I think we are moving in the right directions. As I said, in Orange Business, we are transforming all layers, so we have to change the network. We have to do a lot of investment on the network layer to be able to do this. Also, like provisioning in seconds, it's not only the OSS, it requires a network to support it, it requires a front end to be able to act with it. So it requires the ecosystem to change. We are in Orange Business trying to change this ecosystem to reach this.
Yeah, and on our side, this is nothing that it's new starting now, but we started our journey already a couple of years ago. So, but we could only do it with partner like you, right? That basically is guiding us through the process. And with this, we just want to close. Thank you. We're actually organizing a roundtable with Mohammed to go much more in detail through this, so let us know if you want to participate. And I really want to thank the audience for your attention this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.